Hello everyone, this is Mr. Joe. The title of today's video is The Democrats. Soft on crime, big on gun control. Now, this wasn't the video I intended for making today, but something happened in the past few days which you doubtless have heard of, undoubtedly have heard of. Charlie Kirk was murdered by a gunman, and I felt it necessary to make this short video on what the Democrats stand for. Basically, the Democrats, as I've said before, they seem to want to do the opposite of human nature. Anything which human logic dictates that we should do, they're against. They want to do the opposite. Now, a man was murdered, Charlie Kirk and many others. So, what's the logical punishment? The logical punishment is once a man commits murder, then he's forfeited his own life. He should get the death penalty. But that's not the case with Democratic lawmakers. They say we have to give a person a chance to be rehabilitated, and some Republicans too. But the Democrats mostly are very soft on crime, as they view it as an injustice to some members of society. The lower members of society, we'll discuss it in a moment, but a man has been murdered. Okay, the murderer should be punished with the death penalty. The only thing is, only on two or three witnesses should a person be put to death. I've seen many, many cases. I'm not in the law field, but I've investigated it. There's too many cases where a person is put to death on the testimony of one witness, then it turns out they were mistaken in their identification. Oh, and here's something that happened to me a short while ago. Many men look alike. They're very similar. I had a cousin. We didn't get along very well. His name was Frank. He died a few years ago. And I knew him by sight as well as anyone. And then I saw another man. Now, Frank was about 5'10", and he started getting a little bit of a stomach, a little overweight as he got older, as I did too. That happens to all of us. But I saw a guy. He was a little bit taller, thinner, and he looked, I would say, 98% to 99% similar to my cousin, who I know as a fact is dead. I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely astonishing. He may have been, I had to call up some family members and tell them, and they said he may be a second or close cousin uh, to the family living in this particular town. But I was absolutely astonished, blown away by the similarity. If a stranger had committed murder who looked like a man, my cousin, and then someone later erroneously identified him, I could see how they'd be sure. They would say, yes, it was him, but we need at least two or three witnesses. Two is a minimum to be sure before we give someone the death penalty. And we need forensic evidence too, such as fingerprints, and now we have DNA. But as I've said, in many cases, the police and the district attorneys, they do let their imaginations run away sometimes. They execute a person, then later on they find out they were wrong. Oops, sorry, we made a mistake. That doesn't bring back the person who was wrongfully convicted or put to death. But we have to make 100, not 100% sure, 200, 300, 1,000% sure that there's no doubt whatsoever that it was him. But anyway, getting on with this video now. Now that I said about the death penalty, what is a criminal? A criminal is a man who breaks the law. Now, the Democrats, no doubt, in the years to come, they're going to be harping on We want to ban assault weapons. And I've said this before. We don't have a gun problem. We have a morality problem with people. Ever since prayer was banned in 1962, our rate has steadily surged up. More and more crime, more and more drugs, robbery, murder, violent crime of all kinds, and especially with the teaching of evolution in school. Now, I do not want evolution banned from school. We must not ban free speech. My only my only problem is with people like Richard Dawkins. He's a doctor, as many of you have heard. He has a PhD in biology. He's with Oxford in England. And he says he believes all gods are hallucinogenic. They're hallucinatory, made up, illusionary, a delusion. It's not their job to tell us what to believe in. They're supposed to have the facts, and this is for another video or two that I'll show you how evolution is wrong. It's very easy. Abiogenesis was disproved by Louis Pasteur, but a criminal, we have a very serious problem in this country. Democratic and liberal led newspapers, I've even now seen on TV where some liberal news commentators are saying, well, Charlie Kirk was divisive and hateful. Yeah, but he may have been divisive. I haven't seen enough of his films to know what he said that would be hateful. But they are openly encouraging the Democratic newspapers, people to vent their anger, frustration, and even to shoot at people they don't like. And Donald Trump was almost assassinated this past summer. It's only by the wildest stroke of luck he escaped being killed, like Charlie Kirk. But the newspapers refuse to take any responsibility. The liberal leftist newspapers, MSNBC, CNN, Bloomberg News, and the whole rest of this fake news media, what I call the bullshit news media, they refuse to take any responsibility whatsoever or to condemn it. At least I haven't seen any condemnations from them at this early point. Hopefully they'll do the right thing. But they're encouraging this, and then, of course, they'll encourage gun control. Well, you punish criminals, not people who own guns. Now, how's taking away guns from the vast majority of American people? For instance, a man owns a shotgun in Texas, Arizona, or handguns. They want to limit handgun purchases and destroy all handguns is their ultimate goal. They want to buy back handguns and ultimately outlaw them. How is that going to control crime in New York City? In New York City, it has some of the worst gun laws in the nation, along with California. According to the Sullivan Law, you have to go in and get fingerprinted. Okay, you say. It's necessary to prevent criminals. Criminals, if you know the right people or the wrong people, as it may be, can get anything. The mafia, La Cosa Nostra, the syndicate, they have close ties to criminal organizations in other countries, like the Mexican cartels, the Sinaloa cartels, where they can bring in heroin, cocaine, any other drug, pills. So a criminal, if he knows the right people in the mafia and other criminal organizations, they can get anything that's banned. For instance, if a certain kind of fur coat, let's say, for instance, were banned in the United States, they would have no problem in getting one for their wives or whoever. If they bribed somebody with a bribe, they wanted them to return an innocent verdict for a fellow criminal, they have no problem in getting anything. Diamonds, fur coats, banned cigars from Cuba, As far as I know, we've never reversed the ban on that. It may have happened, but I haven't heard of it. But anyway, you now see my point. A criminal does not obey the law. It is the law abiding citizen who is disarmed by gun control laws. They have to submit not only a criminal background check, but they have to wait in some instances. And this can be a problem. I remember reading about a woman who was threatened by her ex boyfriend in New Jersey. She went to apply for a permit. In case you don't know, and chances are you don't, like I said, you aren't familiar with the gun control laws in Jersey or California. New Jersey, like California, you have to also submit two references on your application form to the police. You go to the local police station, get a reference form or an application form, and you have to furnish two references as to your character. Well, suppose you don't know anyone who believes in the right to own guns, but this woman was a teacher. So she submitted her application. She waited months and months. She finally called in and asked. They told her it was in the works. They're still working on it. They have other applications to get to. Her boyfriend finally showed up one night in her driveway and killed her and another woman too. Then he killed himself. Cold comfort to the victims' families. But the problem is, if the government wants to check on people like the Sullivan Law, they want to do a background check, fine, but don't charge exorbitant fees. It's $350, the last I heard, in New York City. To apply for a permit to purchase a handgun, you have to pay $350 to exercise your constitutional rights. That is illegal. It's illegal and unconstitutional, but there's nothing you can do about it. And I am so sorry. Now, in the 1980s, John Gotti and his henchmen, one of his captains, Sammy Gravano Jr., plotted and killed the head of the Gambino crime family, Paul Castellano, and his bodyguard, or Joe Bellotti. And I remember seeing actually Sammy the Bull Gravano was still alive today. He's in his 80s. He said him and there was 4 to 6 men. I don't know exactly how many they had there. It was at least four, maybe six. He said they all had 357 Magnum revolvers. Now tell me, do you think they went down to the police station, paid the $350 fee, gave two references at least, and put on the application, we want to kill the head of the crime family? That is so ridiculous to think. It doesn't stop criminals, high level criminals like that, from getting guns, or even the lower level criminals. But I'm going to make another video about that. But the Democrats, like I said, they're going to be calling for gun control, ban this gun, ban that gun. First, they want to ban handguns, all handguns. Then they want to ban assault weapons. Then, of course, shotguns and rifles are going to be next since they don't have a sporting use. You can't say for some reason it's wrong to say you want it for self defense. Well, according to the Constitution, you don't have to give a reason, any reason, for sporting or self defense. But once they pass the law, there's nothing you can do about it. And let me consult my trusty notes here. See, uh, yes, so basically that's it. If we want to control crime in this country, we basically, one, need a return to spiritual values, more prayer in school, and number two, punishing criminals. The crime should be proportionate. No, the punishment should be proportionate to the crime. Not letting a man go after 10 or 20 years. I would be for life imprisonment, except that many of them get out early. Not only early, but they say a man's been rehabilitated after 10, 20 years. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The vast majority of offenders, violent criminals, have a mental problem. They can't be rehabilitated. So if someone's committed murder, they should receive the death penalty if we have 2 or 3 witnesses or absolute forensic evidence. Anyway, that's my video for today. This is Mr. Joe signing off.